had a nanny, I was able to spend a little more time on my romance with Joe number 12. He'd sort of been giving me my space after I got back from China, which I thought was a good thing, because I thought, you know, what are you supposed to do when you're dating someone and one of them adopts a baby? There's no rule books for that kind of thing. But I did notice that he kept asking me to meet him places. And this one day we went to this romantic Italian dinner right here on Melrose. And afterwards we were at the valet waiting for our cars. And I said, so are you going to follow me home? And he said, no, he had to get home to meditate, which was so funny to me because one of the things that really made me fall for him was the fact that he meditated. And then, of course, it became the thing that drove me crazy about him. It's like the meditation became the other woman. And I said, oh, yes, the meditation. And then I said, you know, sometime you should go out to breakfast with me and Tara. We're going to Denny's and, you know, we're really starting to have fun. We know this one waitress now. And he turned to me and said, Julia, first of all, I have had breakfast with you and Tara. And second of all, I'm dating you, not your daughter. Now, I'm embarrassed to say that my knee-jerk reaction in this moment was to apologize all over myself. And I said, oh, yes, of course, right. Yeah, I'm sorry. And then we sort of stood there in strained silence. And then I checked my watch, and I realized I was going to get home in time to put Tara to bed, and I was so excited to see her. And then I turned to him and said, you know, you are dating me and my daughter. And so that was the end of Joe number 12. And I was sad, but only for a few days. I remember during that time talking to this married friend of mine who has a 5-year-old son, and she's happily married, and I said to her, you know, sometimes it's so hard being alone. Like Tara's teething right now, and she's up a lot in the night. It must be so great to have someone there with you to help you in the night. And she said, yeah, it can go like that. It can also go like this. You and your husband are sleeping, the baby starts crying, you wake up, you have your idea of how to handle it, he has his idea of how to handle it, they're conflicting ideas, you start arguing over which idea is going to prevail. So now not only is the baby crying, you're in a big fight with your husband about it. And eventually you get out of the bed and you go to the baby's room and you calm him down, and finally he goes back to sleep and you tiptoe back into your bed, and then your husband wants to fuck you. Oh. Okay, that's way worse. Well, I started dating a little bit as a single mom, and it was so wild. I kept thinking, what is so familiar about this? There's something so familiar about this. And I realized it felt like when I was dating in high school. You know, I'd had 20 years where I could go out and do whatever I wanted and stay out all, you know, however long I wanted. And all of a sudden, in order to go out, you know, people have to be notified. You better go where you said you were gonna go. You better come home when you said you were gonna come home. And I found myself putting on my makeup in the bathroom and Lisa answering the door and me thinking, oh, I hope Lisa thinks he's a good enough guy for me to go out with. But anyway, out of this swirl came Joe number 13, and he seemed perfect. He was really into me and really into Tara, and he had ideas for things for us to do and things for all three of us to do, and eventually he spent the night. And my policy at this time was that every decision I made between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. was the one that guaranteed the most sleep for the most people in the house. And that meant that when Tara cried at 3 or 4 in the morning, if I went and got her out of her crib and put her into bed with me, she would sleep a whole lot longer. So the first morning that Tara woke up and found Joe number 13 in bed with us, she immediately stood up and went, no! Like, good morning. And then the next time it happened, she jumped over the top of me, put her arms around him, and then started to try to kick me out of the bed from behind. And then the third time it happened, she jumped over the top of me and started going, da, 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 da. And I looked at her like, what the fuck are you doing? Ixnay on the Addy Day, kid. Well, we were going to the park a lot at this time, and sometimes people would come up to me and say, so, is her father Chinese? And I would say, I think so. Doesn't it seem like it? And then they would ask her name, and she would just stare at them blankly, and then I would say, Tara. Well, this one day we were at the West Hollywood Park right over here, and this guy came up and said, hello, little girl, what's your name? And I said, Tara. And she said, Mulan. And then she looked up at me like, I don't know if you got the memo or not, but my name is Mulan. You can call me Tara, but I answer to Mulan. So I had to give it up. Now she's Mulan. So I started introducing her as Mulan, and people would say, oh, like The movie? And I would say, no, that was her name in China. I didn't name her that. That was her name in China. And then I got so tired of saying that I started saying, yes, after the movie. And then recently someone said to me, that's so neat that you named her after Moulin Rouge. Anyway, one day, Joe number 13 and Mulan and I all ended up taking a nap together on the bed, and the feeling of family was just palpable, and of course I loved it. So later that day, I took Joe number 13 aside and I said, you know, I sort of have this new policy that I don't date anyone for more than a few months unless I feel like we're on the same track. And today when we were all sleeping together, well, that was kind of intense, and I just wondered what you thought about that, if you ever think about us together as a family. And he said he needed a day to think about it. And the next day he came back and said, I love you so much. And I love that little girl so much, but I can't be that. I've never made any decision that would lead to a traditional family like that. I can't be that guy for you. So I was sad. I sat down on the sofa and I got into the fetal position. I cleared my schedule so I could be sad, sad, sad. I turned on the Food Channel. But to my surprise, I found that it actually wasn't all that sad. And I was really more sad for Joe number 13. So then I was really all alone, me trying to learn how to be a good parent and Mulan trying to learn how to grow up. One of the things I love about being a parent is teaching your child how to talk, the meanings of words. And I haven't taught her any crazy wrong definitions of words, but I have put like my own little spin on some. Like I've taught her that you absolutely can't read a book at night unless you have a blanket over your legs, and that's called cozy. And I've also taught her, you know, what a house is, but that if a cat lives there, then it's a home. And so at night when we walk around the block, she'll say, house, house, home. And if you look, sure enough, there'll be a cat sitting on the porch. Also, she started doing this thing when we were out. She would say, Mama, let's go home. See Rita, see Val. Like, I couldn't quite be convinced to go home on my own, but if I remembered the cats were there, I would agree to go home. Well, she started preschool, and on the first day, the teacher said, spend about an hour with your child, and then tell them that you're gonna go, and they're probably gonna cry. That's okay, that's just normal, and then go. So after an hour, parents started leaving, and kids started crying all over the place. And I said, okay, Mulan, well, I guess I'm gonna go home now. And she said, oh, no, wah, wah. And I said, that's not a real cry. And she said, yeah. That's what you get.